Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Modern Solutions for Modern Restaurants. I'm Paul Molinari from Popcorn. And today's guest is Skip Kimpel, and he's the CEO of Magicgate. And Magicgate positions themselves as a leader at the intersection of XR and AI and hospitality. So today we're talking about extended reality, which is a pretty cool topic and has an amazing amount of applications and implications for the hospitality industry. So we're going to dive into this tech, which is helping to transform literally everything from training to guest experience. And we're going to have a better understanding as to what it takes to future-proof some restaurant operations using this kind of technology. So, Skip, welcome to the show. Let's get into it, buddy.
Paul, thank you so much for having me on. I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while, so super happy that we're able to do this.
Yes, absolutely. It's my pleasure. I think that most people in our industry actually look to you as being the leader, the leading subject matter expert on XR. So this is great that you're here. I'm so pleased that we're able to do this. So let's talk a little bit about extended reality, which I understand is kind of the umbrella for VR, AR, MR. What's the difference between these things for the uninitiated?
So, XR is nothing more than an umbrella term for augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, and we'll probably have many other realities in the future that we haven't even thought about yet. But XR becomes that umbrella term because as you start talking about virtual reality and augmented reality, you can just start spitting out all these names out there where really XR is easier just to talk about, but just so everybody understands, it encompasses all of those.
So extended reality. And as I understand it also, an XR could kind of incorporate a virtual reality, an augmented reality, and this mixed reality sense. Like we're going to see the fusion of these three kinds of tech kind of coming together in and kind of in like a seamless fashion. Is that
Well, I think I will even throw out immersive technology out there, things that you don't even need a
okay?
headset or glasses for. Once again, it's that generic term. I think the one piece that people are confused about is mixed reality, and it's evolved in its terminology over time. Mixed reality
Yeah,
in its original form was where you combine the physical and digital worlds together. Perfect example is being able to pop on a VR headset, and this is actually being done today, where like the Neom project over in Saudi Arabia, where you have people here in the United States that are driving these robotic construction equipment in VR, but they're controlling physical devices. We also see this with other robotic equipment. However, in today's term, mixed reality really gets intertwined with what's called pass through. So if you put on a VR headset, you know, you've got, for instance, it has cameras on the front of it so you can see your real environment and it's a pass through
right.
mode. So I would have to say today's terminology really mixed reality involves that piece of it as well.
Wild. Interesting. So let's talk a little bit about Magicgate first. Magicgate, as I indicated in the beginning, you guys are positioning yourselves as uh, at the intersection of XR, AI, and other disruptive technology in hospitality. So, how has your vision evolved when you started till now, and what was kind of like the catalyst for you getting
Well,
into
I
this
think in
space to
order to
begin with?
understand and answer that question, we need to take a step back to a little bit of my history. So, just so that you
Mhm.
understand, if you don't know who I am, I was a CIO for multiple restaurant brands. So, I've sat in that seat as an operator and understand the real struggles and the real problems out there. I moved into consulting probably about
Right.
4 years ago, traditional tech stack consulting with another company, IT strategy roadmaps, system selection or RFPs, little M&A work. But a year ago, I decided to start my own company. I've always had this passion for XR technology. I've been involved with the VR AR Association for many years, and I decided it's time to bring the two worlds together. Now, why now? I have seen what it's done and its capabilities in other industries, from medical to defense to space to education. It is a highly leveraged tool out there. And quite honestly, I like to kid that and say that hospitality doesn't even know how to spell XR because they've never been exposed to it. So I thought it's, being the ambassador of this technology, it's my mission to educate people how it can be utilized, but most importantly, really how it can help evolve an organization, better efficiencies within the organization, cost savings, etc. I am not a person to throw technology for technology's sake. It has to make sense and have a real ROI. And that goes back to my operator mindset.
So one of those key areas where an ROI feels like it's not only possible, but I think it can be actually transformative is with training. There are lots of industries out there, like as you indicated, there are tons of industries out there that are using XR, VR technologies in their daily workflows. I mean, I've seen videos where you had miners, a mile beneath the Earth's surface, like underground, utilizing XR technology for safety controls and other things. How is it that do you see that training? Is that the entry
I consider
point,
it
do you think, for hospitality?
the entry level, absolutely. The drug to get you introduced into XR is the gateway drug. However, and this is what I've learned over the past 12 months of having our business up and running and talking XR strategies, is it starts as a VR training conversation. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, while that has some fantastic ROI behind it, super hard to put solid financial numbers. I mean, there are soft numbers when you look at that. So the conversation has quickly changed over into operation benefits, where it starts with an operational tool and then transfers down into VR training. I'll give you a perfect example. We were at Mertech this last year showcasing our XR technology. And while we were showcasing some of our really cool XR stuff, one of those demos was VR training. And we had two operators come up to me and say, "That's great, but can we use it for kitchen design? Can we use it prior? We're looking at a kitchen of the future. We see CAD designs. They walk us through the computer of a 3D model, but we'd like to actually be able to walk through that kitchen at scale with multiple people in the room to determine, does the freezer door open the right way? Are we blocking traffic? Is it an efficient model to work with?" So once that's done and you have all these ops people in the room actually going through this and learning about their kitchen before it's built, so you're able to fix a problem before it is a problem, therefore solving potentially millions of dollars and saving millions of dollars in mistakes. Those assets then became available to build out VR training within that kitchen. So think about it. You're able to build out a kitchen and examine a kitchen prior to it actually launching. Number two, you can have your teams come into your corporate office and actually practice in that kitchen with their training modules prior to that restaurant opening. What we're looking at right now is saving about 2 weeks of opening time because the people will already be familiar with that kitchen layout. Yeah.
That's incredible. It's almost like a prototype. It's a virtual prototype of as a matter of fact, you can just to brainstorm here for a second or so, but I'd imagine that almost any uh, any operator could prototype a new floor layout, a new design, and literally test that against multiple designs, grab feedback in real time from franchisees. Yeah, amazing. Actually, I hadn't thought of that. That 3D modeling and being able to walk around and examine through this virtual space and see how it really
Now it
looks
gets
and
even more
feels
exciting from there.
before you
We
spend
have
a
one client
dollar
that
on
we're
it.
talking to that wants to take that to the next level. Once the kitchen is designed and they figure that out and they bring in teams to actually practice making dishes, They want to be able to spatially record the movements within the kitchen, then move equipment around in that virtual kitchen and rerun simulations using AI to determine, is that the right layout for the kitchen from a productivity perspective? So now you're utilizing it to truly determine what is the most efficient layout for your kitchen, which obviously that's time, money, all those areas that we're always trying to solve for.
Yeah, that entire organizational design, that's phenomenal. So I'm wondering if with where we are today, and it's exciting how quickly that it's moving, but can you share any kind of real world examples where these XR technologies may have delivered some ROI
I
for
can.
hospitality clients?
It's interesting because, and
It's
my wife and I joke
You
about this
can.
all the time. There are large QSRs, specifically within our space, that are doing VR for training, but they don't want to talk about it because they believe it's a competitive advantage.
Yep.
And when I tell them, hey, your competitors are actually doing it, they think they're the only ones. So my wife says, you're going to have the best client list that you'll never be able to talk about, just due to the fact we're waiting for that first big client to really come out there and start bragging about their success. But once again, I don't think they want to right now because they are being successful with it. So you do have the Marriotts of the world and the hotel side. I think the hotel side of the fence is really talking about it more, but even they're holding back a little bit as well.
Well, would that be more on the experiential side with regard to Marriott, like more of the guest experience, or is that more
It's
at
usually for
HQ where
training,
they're
and
using
the
the
areas of front desk training, et cetera. And I think that we need to take a step back and talk about the benefits of training because, like I said, they're soft numbers, but the ROI is really powerful. For instance, you can train an employee 4 times faster than you would through traditional training. The retention rate of traditional training, like watching a video or watching something on your computer, is usually between 9 to 12%. With VR, it's proven to be 80% retention rate because you're creating muscle memory. You're in an environment that is replicating the real world. And what's interesting as well as those people that go through VR training have a 285% more confident level of the skills that they learn. So it's a very powerful tool because you're engaging all of the senses when you're going through these training modules. Now, I like to say there's
Yeah.
3 golden rules that we follow when we're talking to a client about training because I'm not going to walk into an organization and say, you need to change all of your training over into VR. That doesn't make sense. I think there's the 3 rules of thumb are if it's expensive to train. For instance, there's a brand out there that I know every employee before they actually start their first day on the job, they have to create 200 different dishes. I'll think about the food cost of that, the food waste. Or let's say they're expensive to train for. There's a piece of robotic equipment that you don't want them to break. So that's an example of an expensive scenario to train for. Number 2, if it's dangerous to train for. So is it a fryer? Is it, and once again, a piece of robotic equipment? If you're not using it right, is that dangerous for that employee? And number 3, if it's difficult to replicate.
Right.
And think about rush hour or a stressful scenario. You can train all day long, but until you hit that rush hour, you have no idea how that employee is going to react to that scenario. So I like to use the Jaden Daniels example. Jaden Daniels is, for those that you don't know, he is the quarterback for the Washington Commanders. Gotta be careful what phrase I use. Anyways, when he was in college, he used VR training for all his quarterback training, looking at film footage, and he would train at 1.75 times the speed. Now, I don't know if you've seen Jaden Daniels play in the NFL, and once again, he brought that training over into the NFL. He is the calmest, coolest quarterback in the pocket because he has seen it before, and he's seen it at almost twice the speed. Now, apply that to the restaurant side. Let's say you're training for making a sub sandwich, and you have to make it accurately. But now a manager can sit on their iPad and say, let's line up 10 more customers behind that, and let's see how fast they can make it and put them under a little bit of pressure. So you're solving for that stressful scenario by replicating an environment that they normally wouldn't see very often. Yep.
Yeah, you're cranking up the sim. I mean, it's a simulation at the end of the day. That's what you're doing here. So you're putting together
Correct.
all of these different scenarios for which you can train around. And then it's not necessarily only, maybe it's not only in the kitchen. I mean, I don't know. Does it transfer to cleaning the tables, to sweeping the
It
floors,
could, but I
to
think those are
cleaning the
great
bathroom?
examples of a waste
Inventory
of
taking, for
resources for
example.
XR training. Another area that's very popular, not just like training for a
Yeah.
process or teaching a process, but those soft skill training, right? We're able through some of the headsets collect facial data. So you can determine how stressed they are. Do their pupils dilate? Are they smiling when they're trying to deal with an irate customer? You can put them through all these scenarios to determine how they're going to react. And those become great training tools moving forward or even think about this. We have one client that we're talking to. They want to use this on the onboarding process and put them into scenarios to determine what's the best place for them on the floor. Do we really want to put them at a cash register where they're not good with customers, but maybe there's potential? Maybe we start back of house and slowly move them, upskill them to get to front of house.
Wild. So you think then, is this done now? This can be done at the store level then. The vision could be that every store incorporates XR into their training regimens, where it makes sense, obviously. And fascinating. Do you think that there's an
There
opportunity
is. I do
for
believe,
XR
so
with the guest experience?
on your iPhone or your Android device now, there are augmented reality experiences that you can have. There are companies out there that have their menus in augmented reality. So if you want to look at your dish on your table, if you want to see what that tomahawk steak is going to look like, you can actually augment it over your current table. There's
Yep.
augmented reality marketing, for instance. But I think, from a consumer perspective, in today's day, it's going to be based through your phone. The day is coming when the wearable devices, the glasses out there, are going to
Yep.
take over. And, we're making baby steps in that area with Meta launching their new Meta displays, where you do have some type of display in there right now. But once again, this is just the next step. We're probably, acceptable wearables. We're probably still a few years away from that.
Yeah. I mean, I've always found it to be interesting with regard. I mean, we've seen some great success, of course. Everybody points to Pokemon, with the augmented reality and how, but it's interesting. Have you seen yet a restaurant brand taking advantage of VR or AR at all as a marketing strategy? Well, like, for example, we've all done these VR, we've all had these VR experiences that can be pretty amazing. I mean, like knock your socks off type of holy cow kind of experiences that you have with these. It's interesting to me that there hasn't been a hospitality brand that's latched on to that as an experience, and as I think a relatively low cost experience that they can actually incorporate directly into, into the four walls. That's completely
Exactly.
branded. I mean, imagine taking somebody inside of the McDonald's universe, for example, right? You're in McDonald's land and you're high-fiving Grimace, you could just imagine like
Yep.
this entire universe or world that can open up for a brand. To me, that speaks to an opportunity for XR to kind of cross into the mainstream, for which it becomes now not only a marketing tool, but a real lure, or yeah, a lure to get people in through the door to have this experience. Is anybody talking to you about how that can be, or is
Sure.
that something that, hell, I mean,
So I think
you and I
there's a
should
couple
talk
different aspects
about
to that.
ways in
First of
which we
all,
can make that opportunity
VR
available to
full
restaurant
headset
brands if they're
adoption has
allowed.
been relatively low. I mean, there's millions of devices out there, don't get me wrong, but your average consumer needs to have a very valid reason for getting one other than gaming or maybe a business purpose to it. Yeah.
That is a very that is a
Lots,
very
but
valid reason.
once
I mean,
again, it's
how many
not
units has Meta
that
sold with their
widespread
Quest?
adoption like a phone. Everybody's got 1.4
Lots.
phones or something, some crazy number like that in their pockets. So right now, that's why I do believe those experiences need to come through a
Right.
phone. And the phones are only going to get better. They're going to become 3D. We have 3D screens right now that you don't need to wear glasses, but there will be the phones that will also have that experience. So talk about some really cool stuff that could happen down the road. I think the other area of why it's not being widely adopted with restaurants goes back to one of my first statements. There's not enough knowledge about the industry or the technology for them to really understand what the benefits are going to be. And because they haven't seen too many of these benefits or seen too many of these examples, their creativity isn't going in that direction.
Right.
I'll give you a perfect example. And this was, gosh, had it been 10, 12 years ago. And think about that in today's day of technology. I saw an augmented reality experience that absolutely blew me away. Haagen-Dazs decided to create this AR experience with their ice cream. So the goal was you get your ice cream, and the theory here was you have to leave the ice cream out on the counter for a certain period of time, 45 seconds or something like that, to reach the optimal temperature for eating. Probably a complete marketing scheme. But what they did is you could hold the phone up over the ice cream, and it would read the top of the ice cream thing, and like a violinist would come up. Somebody from an orchestra would start playing for 45 seconds. They'd play a little tune. The really cool part is if you put multiple containers of ice cream next to each other, you actually had a full orchestra that would actually play while you were waiting for your ice cream to become optimal temperature. Once again, brilliant marketing scheme, way, way ahead of their time, considering how long ago that was. I wish they would bring that back because that's some pretty cool stuff.
That is incredibly cool stuff. I mean, and would you call that that's an AR? That's an AR experience, right? Well, here's the thing. I want to go down this rabbit hole a little bit because sometimes our industry needs to be pushed. And usually that push comes from the consumer, right? It's if they're not, if the operator isn't going to do it with the industry's help, sometimes they need a nudge with the consumer. So considering the entire world of creativity that can open up to these marketing teams, to brand teams for that matter. I think it's very rare to have technology that can actually create worlds.
Oh, there you go. You're back. You're back.
Okay. I'll see if I can edit this back in, see if I come back. Am I back? All right. I was talking about world creation, right? So let's talk about XR, VR, AR from a world creating perspective. How easy is it for an operator to grab the reins of this tech to start creating for itself, as opposed to needing to hire a specialist or an agency or somebody to create this for them? Are there are there platforms available for which restaurants can create for themselves different worlds in which this technology can work
within the XR industry? Now with AI out there, you can build a lot of these assets that you need by yourself. However, and this is why Magicgate exists. We don't sell a product. We don't have our thumb on the scale for anything. We are actually out there as a consultancy and we didn't mention this before, but we're a consultancy to help hospitality figure out what their XR strategy is. And we don't want to be in this world like we were during COVID or even during this AI craze up until now, where people just started buying all these disparate products and not having a strategy behind it. XR is a very complicated piece, and you need to be able to understand what that looks like, from security to intellectual property to deployment, menu or device management. These are areas that we're not used to dealing with in hospitality. So that's why we exist. So question is, have the right guidance, make sure you're going in the right direction. Number two, yes, we are at that intersection where you can start creating these assets internally with your own teams.
That's really cool. And Another thing that I wanted to better understand with XR is it feels like it's coming at you. Like you're particularly with VR, you're immersed in this world. But is there also an opportunity for which you can be a participant recording what's going on in your world, almost like a body cam, think as a way, and then take that information, boil it down, and then somehow be able to put forth, I don't know, in data or something else where this is the experience of a barista. This is the experience of a counter worker. This is the experience of a cook. Is XR incorporating the
Well,
absorption
I
of
think that
information
there's a couple ways
as
to answer
or is
that.
it mostly just
And I'll go back to a question you
projecting
threw out to me
what
earlier
it wants you to
about
see?
brands using it as, being able to walk through or look
Yeah.
at a scenario. We're talking to a very large brand right now that's been around forever, that during their onboarding process, or even at a conference, right? At a national restaurant association, they
Mhm.
want people walking through their booth to understand, hey, let's step back 100 years and see what this restaurant was like back at that point in time at the turn of the century, and gradually walk through the brand and the history, and how that brand become how it is today. um, so from the walking through the life of a barista, once again, you have to understand, what is the value of that? We're talking to a company right now. It's very interesting. They're using augmented reality to record human movement. They're actually a humanoid robotic company. They want to record human movement in a warehouse so that they can take this data back and apply it to the humanoid robotics. So they basically replace the humans in that scenario. So once again, data is being collected, whether we like it or not. It's being collected all around us. How we utilize that data really comes to our imagination, and I guess a little bit of cost as well. How far do you want to take this? And does it make sense for what you're trying to do? I think that's the first question that you need to ask yourself. What is the ROI, and does it make sense?
Right. Now that certainly does make a lot of sense. One of the things that I was wondering as well, and maybe this is we can go down this rabbit hole a little bit, and that's about standardization and APIs and standard. How is it that is there a universe, Skip, that in which all of these different technologies have to be do you see them all working together on the same in the same sort of standardization? Or is this going to be yet another technology that has a whole bunch of has a whole bunch of different standards and different APIs and different sort of competing worlds?
I'm glad you asked that question, because that is
Uh,
right as my passion. Years ago, we put together a list of technology standards, and people say, "What? You've never had technology standards before?" No, we didn't. And by creating these standards, it's allowed us to create some normalcy across the data aspects within the industry. Now, the beautiful part is, as I have this whole nother world, just as I'm well known in the restaurant side, I have this whole other world in the XR side that I'm
right.
also now known for. And we're helping these organizations onboard into hospitality. It's an area that they all want to be in because they hear me talking about it, right? How can you not be excited about that? And, I tell that story about data standards, but also point them to where the data standards are so that they can actually start writing their
Yeah.
software and their integrations based upon those standards. So restaurant industry, it took a long time to get to that level, and we're still going through the adoption phase. I mean, that's going to take a very long time to be fully adopted. But at least by writing to the standards, you're starting to I'm creating good habits on the XR side as we're onboarding new vendors into the industry.
So I guess along that vein, with regard to these standardizations and cutting edge tech like XR and AI for that matter, how how do you maintain that balance between like establishing reliable protocols and still fostering disruptive creativity? Because isn't that one of the things that people are always concerned about with standardization is like, oh well, standardization is somewhat of a dampens creativity to a degree. Is that true, or have you experienced that
So
yet in
I
any of these
believe that
standardization
as
efforts,
we're
or
still in that
has it really
adoption
been,
phase,
no, this has actually
and these are
helped
some of
us
the
move
areas
things
that we talk
forward in a
about to
creative way?
vendors, to operators about the benefit. Why would you want to standardize? Why disrupt your world of development? The benefits for both sides is being able to deploy software faster within the organization. You think of all these
Mm,
SaaS products out there that take, they don't get paid until it's rolled out. So the faster you can roll out, the better it's going to be for the vendor. Also, if you are able to integrate through these standards,
right.
integrate much quicker because these standards exist and you're able to satisfy that customer, now you have a happy customer. And I think those are two of the biggest problems with rolling out SaaS products is the time it takes to roll out. Number two, is it going to actually accomplish what we need to? I don't know how many times I've seen a SaaS vendor say they can do something and they hit a hiccup because their data isn't talking to the other system. So having these standards in place almost doesn't guarantee it, but it certainly helps it along the way.
Yeah, for sure. So let's leave on this. I want to better
Sure.
understand how you feel about XR and AI, because clearly these two things are colliding as AI collides with just about everything out there now. But so are you seeing sort of an exponential increase in usability, in performance,
Always
in
I dabble in it. I'm a mad scientist, but certainly not my ultimate passion. However, I'm able to pick up some of these platforms, which is written, most of them are either written in C#
Mhm.
or C++, which I haven't touched in many years. But you know what? That whole side of the fence of programming has become fantastic via the use of AI. Now, is it a production quality product? No. Is it an MVP to prove my point? Absolutely. So I think, we're seeing it from asset creation, software creation.
Sure.
Now we're starting to see that massive convergence between XR and AI. And to be honest with you, it's hard to get into a conversation with operators without starting with AI first. That is the trigger word. XR kind of comes onto the back of that conversation. But a perfect example of using AI and XR together, and we'll go back to training for a second. Let's imagine that
Mm.
you're training for a front desk counter at a hotel. And once again, you have an irate customer in front of you. Instead of pre-programming what that customer is going to say, having an AI bot that's actually talking to and responding to how you respond to them. So, you can put people through all these unique scenarios that you really can't maybe count on, or you're not thinking about ahead of time. But you know what? AI is becoming a lot smarter than us. And it comes up with some very unique opportunities
Ah.
to train individuals. That's one use case scenario that I think is a great use case. And it's being done right now. I haven't seen it done yet in the restaurant side of it, but
I love that idea.
Mhm.
I think that's fantastic, actually, being able to train folks, particularly
Right,
some of these younger workers that, you know, may be struggling to
right.
figure out ways in which to engage in a hospitable way. I mean, let's get back to hospitality, right, people?
We have a company going through a pilot right now to solve for one of the biggest problems that we have in the restaurant industry, and that is order accuracy. And we examine order accuracy from multiple different aspects. If you think about it, there's one, was the burger created properly? But the one that we heard from operators more and more was at the drive through. Did we forget the ketchup? Did we forget the straws? Did we put two hamburgers in the bag? Or do we only
Mhm.
put one and there's supposed to be two? So what we've been able to do is create this workflow tying into existing KDS systems where the person that's in charge for that expedited process is actually seeing the KDS ticket pop up in their view. And with all the items on it, as they're placing the items in the bag, it's actually checking off each one of those items. When the order is ready to go and it's complete, it will actually check off the bag and bump the ticket off the KDS system, and the next ticket pops up. Now, we can't determine was that hamburger made properly, but we can determine did the hamburger go in the bag? Did the straws go in? Did the ketchup go in? And there we're using a combination between augmented reality, AI, and computer vision to be able to accomplish all that. So that's some pretty cool stuff that we're doing there. Magicgate is, you probably be seeing some more announcements coming up by the end of the year. Got some Very cool stuff coming up. And it's more edging on the AI side combined with XR. So I don't want to give away all the fun stuff. Guarantees my spot to come back on your show in the future.
Fantastic. I would love that. Hey, listen, man. Skip Kimpel, I'm so glad that we're able to do this. Thank you so much for taking the
Thanks,
time.
Paul.
I know
Always a
you're an
pleasure.
extremely busy guy. I'll make sure that I put your links in the description of this podcast. And thanks again, brother. And I'll see you out there on the road.